Okay. All right. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. We're going to get started with our Tamid learning. So we've got two places. We passed out the art scroll Gemaras. Again, we're going to daven Marv at 8:21. If you're following at the front, we're on Lamed Amud Beis, the bottom of Lamed Amud Beis. We're about 6 lines before the Gemara closes and we start a new Mishnah. That would be on Lamed Amud Beis. If you're using the back, the elucidated art scroll, again, not all the way in the back where it's Midos, but still in Tamid, it would be 30b4. Starting with the words Misha Zacha B'dishun HaMenorah. We're going to be talking about the Kohen who earned the right, won the lottery to clean out the menorah. So again, in the front, it would be Lamed Amud Beis towards the bottom. And if you're using the back, it is 30b4. So let's see. It says as follows, so the Kohen who won the right to clean out the menorah, because again, every morning they would clean out the menorah because it had burnt through the previous day and through the night. So they would clean it out. So menorah, nichnas, he would go into the Kodesh section. Again, the golden Mizbeach has been cleaned and all the ashes are in a golden basket. Now the next Kohen whose job it was to clean out the menorah, he would go in. Matzah Shnei Mizrachis Tolkien, and most of the time he would find that the two, remember there was, unlike the Hanukkah menorahs that we use now, the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash, there were 3 arms on each side and 1 in the middle, so for a total of 7. So it was set up along the wall of the Kodesh section, going from east to west. So the lamps that he would hit initially were going to be the easternmost ones. So it says as follows, Matzah Shnei Neiros Mizrachis Dolken. He found the 2 most eastern lamps were still burning. Many Mefarshim say this was a nace. This was a miracle. This was above the laws of nature, that even though all the other 5 lamps would have gone out by that time, the 2 easternmost ones were still burning. Again, not always, but most of the time. So it says, what would he do? Midashen Esashar. He would leave those 2 burning. He would initially clean out the other 5, take out the ashes from them as well as that leftover oil and get them set up. And he would leave those 2 burning in their place, meaning while he was cleaning out the other 5, he left those 2 burning. Matzon Shekavu, in the event that those 2 easternmost lamps had gone out when he went in there, Medashnan, so then he would clear the ash from them, umadlikan minadolkin, and he would relight them from those that were still burning. Meaning he would clean out the other 5, light those 2 while he was cleaning out the other 5 to keep those 2 easternmost ones burning. The Mefarshim explained this was done to create some kind of a hefsek that should be done in 2 stages. The cleaning of the menorah should be in 2 stages. So they wanted to clean out the other 5, and those 2 easternmost ones should be cleaned last. And before the menorah was uba sholosh malos, there was a stone stairway that was set up in front of the menorah. This is something that we read about already in the Torah, telling us that there was supposed to be stairs before the menorah for the Kohen to stand on when he was lighting it and also when he was cleaning it out. There were 3 stairs in this stone stairway. And upon these stairs, that's what the Kohen would stand on. That's what he would use when he was cleaning up, improving the lamps, and he was setting them up. When he was all done, he would take that golden jar that now has the ashes from the burnt up wicks and used up oil. He would now put that on the second of the stairs. Now at this point, the Kodesh section, the Mizbeach has been cleaned and the menorah has been cleaned. Now, once they've both been cleaned, we're going to see that what happens is the golden basket and that golden jug, they would both exit the Kodesh at the same time. Again, we're not up to that yet. Now we're going to get back to what happened when they shechted the Tamid. But that would be, the 2 of those would leave the Kodesh section at the same time, and they would be deposited on the ground near the ramp on the east side of the ramp of the Mizbeach, where they had the same spot where the Trumas Hadeshin had been deposited. That's where they're going to be deposited as well. Let's start the next Mishnah. So the next Mishnah, again, if you're using the back, we're on 30b6. If you're using the front, we're still on Lamed Amud Beis at the bottom where that Mishnah begins. We're now going to talk about how they shechted, how they slaughtered, and then later butchered up the Korban Tamid, because we had learned in the previous Mishnah that the Korban Tamid was going to be cut up into many different pieces, and different Kohanim were going to have the privilege of carrying different parts of that Korban Tamid to the Mizbeach, to the ramp of the Mizbeach. So let's see how it was shechted and how it was cut up. So the Mishnah says, Lo Yakovsen Esatzleh. They didn't tie up all the legs of this lamb in the normal fashion. It seems like if a butcher was going to butcher a tzleh, what they would do is they would take all four legs and tie all four legs together. That's not what they did. Rather, he says, Ela ma'akdin oso. They tied it up in the Akeda style. Akeda, think about Akedas Yitzchak. When Avram tied up Yitzchak. So according to the Mefarshim, they explained that was he took Yitzchak's right arm and right leg, tied them together and in back of him, and tied his left arm and left leg together in the back like that. That's called Akeda style. So they would tie this lamb's front legs and its back legs, its forelegs and its hind legs, the right to the right and the left to the left. That's how they would do it. It says, Misha Zachu Be'evarin Ochazuba. Whoever won the rights of carrying up the limbs, they would hold the lamb. Now I'm not sure what that means, because there was many Kohanim who had the rights of carrying up the limbs. The right we saw in a previous Mishnah and we're going to see now that this lamb was cut into many parts. So I don't remember. I remember when we learned this Mishnah several months ago, this came up. I don't remember what we saw in this. Which Kohen specifically was this talking about? Who's going to be holding it? Now the Mishnah says, and this is how they bound it up. This was how they positioned it while it was bound. Rosh Ladaram, its head was going to face south. So again, if you look at the map of the Beis Hamikdash, so if you look, remember we are north of the Mizbeach. Excuse me, north of the Mizbeach. So it says as follows, it's going to be north of the Mizbeach. So remember, north of the Mizbeach at point 25 on that map, that was where they shechted it. So it's going to be that its head is going to be facing south, upanav lamarav, but its face is going to be facing west, meaning to the Beis Hamikdash, to the Kodesh section. So that means its tail end, its bottom end is facing north, so its head is facing south, but they turned his face, the lamb's face, so it's facing the Beis Hamikdash, so it's facing west. So that's how it's positioned. Now it says, lost the spotter of Ashochet Mizrach, and the one who was going to shecht it stood on the eastern part of it, and meaning that the shochet's face was also going to be facing the Beis Hamikdash. That was seen as the way of showing the most respect. The shochet's back shouldn't be to the Beis Hamikdash. Now it says, excuse me, Upanav Lamarav, and his face is also going to be to the west, being towards the Beis Hamikdash. Now the Mishnah continues, says, Shal Shachar Yanishchat Al Keren Sephonis Maravis. The Tamid, where did they, in other words, in that area in front of the Mizbeach, you see that there's a wide area there. If you look, there's a diagram, if you're using the art scroll, in the left column there's a diagram showing that there were 24 rings. We're going to get to those rings in a minute. Each mishmar, each group of Kohanim, family group of Kohanim, they had their own ring that was designated for its use. So in that section over there, that's where the Korban Tamid was going to be slaughtered. So you see, there's the Mizbeach, you see it's facing north, and you'll see there's a northwest and a northeast section. So now the Gemara says, the Mishnah rather says, Shal Shachar, the Tamid that was brought in the morning, Yanishchat al Keren Tzfonis Maravis, that was shechted by the northwest corner. You see, that's where he's got it on the map. It says morning Tamid. And then it says Al Tabas Shnia. And they used in the second row of rings, that's what they used. Many of the Mefarshim explained this had to do with the fact of how the sun was at that time of the day. In terms of how the sun was at that time of the day, so as not, to create the most covet as possible, that it shouldn't be in the shade. We wanted to have it directly under the sky. So then it says, the Mishnah continues and it says, Shalbein Arbayim, the Tamid that was going to be shechted in the afternoon, that was at the northeast section over there. And again, Al Tabashni on the second rows of rings. Now, what do these rings look like? You see in the art scroll, they did a beautiful job. They brought down the machlokas of the Rosh and Rashi. So the Rush has it that those rings were in place so you could harness the animal so it didn't wiggle around and escape when they were trying to shecht it. So according to the Rush, that's the picture on the back. Those rings were actually like a half ring. And there was a hinge, it lifted up, and then it bolted down to the ground to keep the lamb in place or other animals in place. The Rashi, though, is B. It says that there was no hinges involved. It was rotating. So it was like a half ring. And you see how it was rotating. Depending on how it was positioned, it would be locked in the ground. So you see it's a very clever invention, how Rashi's got it there. So that's how that was set up. And I would imagine that for different animals, because remember, it wasn't just lambs that they were shechting. There could be bulls, there could be oxen, whatnot. So there was different animals. So they probably had different sizes of these rings to make sure that the animal would fit in there as well. So now the Mishnah continues and it says, now that we know the position where the Tamid was shechted, now it's going to get a little bit more into the process. So it says as follows, Shachar HaShochet V'Kibel HaMekabel. The Kohen who was going to slaughter it, he does the slaughtering, and another Kohen who had the right or had the privilege of being Mekabel, of accepting the blood, of catching it in a special basin. So it says he would go ahead and receive it. And he would now bring that jug that had the blood of the lamb from the Korban Tamid, he would bring it to the northeast corner of the Mizbeach, Nosein Mizrachat Tzafona, and he would stand at that corner and he would toss it, so to say, dash it, they say, at that corner in a way that it would now hit both sides. So if you hit the corner with that blood, it'll hit the north side as well as the east side. Then he would go to Maravis Dromis. He would then go to the southwest corner of the Mizbeach, and it says, we're on 30b7 if you're in the back, V'nosein Marava Droma. And when he would throw that blood against that southeast corner, then some of the blood would go on the south wall, some of it would go on the west wall, and by doing this, all four walls have some blood on it from the Korban Tamid. Then it says, Shayare Adam Ayashofech Al Yisod Dromi. And then the remaining blood that was still in the container, in the jug that he had, he would pour that onto the southern base. So meaning he's standing at you see the diagram on 30b7, it has it there. So there's the Mizbeach, you're looking at it a bird's eye view. So again, he splashed some of the blood at the northeast corner, some of the blood at the southwest corner, and then what's remaining, he's going to deposit that on that base at that south corner over there. All right, we're turning the page. If you are using the front, we are now on Lamed Aleph, Amid Aleph at the top, and if you're using the back, we're at 31A1. There are excellent diagrams here that are going to show us, because he's going to get into the specifics of as they would butcher the Korban Tamid, cut up that lamb, how exactly they cut it up and which parts, how they separated it. So let's see the Mishnah, just to point something out there. You see the diagram on the upper right. That is a shechted sheep hanging there. It's got its left leg is through that hook is going through the knee on the left leg. That's how it was hung. And they would skin it, they would take the hide off, and then they're going to start to cut up the various pieces. But that's important. You'll see that's its left hind leg, that hook is going through its knee there. So let's see. Lo hayashover boas haregel. Unlike normal butchers, that I guess one of the first things they would do after the animal was shechted, they would then crack off the regel. The regel was the hind legs. So unlike a normal thing, they would not do that. They would not crack off the legs. Rather, they would make a hole in the area of its knee, the tolabo, and they would hang it from a hook through that hole, and it was going to be the left leg, as we'll see. And then they would start skinning it. They would start taking the hide, cutting and coming down with it, until they got to the area of its chest, where it goes to the breast of the lamb. That they would come down with the skin there. Once they got there, at that point, they beheaded. Again, it had already been shechted, so it's got a slit in its throat. At that point, they would cut off the head of the sheep. And then they would give the head to the Kohen, who had won the lottery, that he was going to bring that head to the Mizbeach. Again, they didn't bring the pieces one at a time. They just handed it off to that Kohen. He's going to wait with it until they're all ready to go as a group. Then they cut off all 4 feet. Because again, even though it's hanging there, it's hanging by its knee. So they're going to cut off all 4 feet of the lamb. and they're going to give those 4 feet to the Kohen who's got that privilege of carrying the feet to the Mizbeach. Then they finished skinning the animal at that point, removing the hide. The hide was not going to be burnt. Even though the Tamid was burnt as an Ola, they did not burn the hide. The hide was given, they collected them every week, and they were distributed to the Kohanim who were on duty. So they probably had a lot of leather being worn, all the Kohanim. I remember reading somewhere once about this, about how, it wasn't like that they could sell it. It wasn't like they had to use it for themselves. This was a source of income for Kohanim. All right, let's pause here. We'll continue tomorrow night, where we're going to get into more about how they butchered up the korban tamid to cut it into the pieces that were going to be needed to bring it to the mizbeach. All right, we'll say a Kaddish Rabban and Yashar Koach, everyone. Rabbi Chanani ben Akash Omer Ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Es Yisrael. V'fikach Ir Balaam Torah Mitzvos. Shenemar Adonai Chafetz Laman Sidko Yadil Torah V'Yadir. Amen.